All right, so we are back here talking about domestic law. We just talked about sole custody and joint custody. Now I want to ask, what is the different parent roles?
Okay, so when you're talking about custody, you can have a parent that you have, when you talk about legal custody, you're talking about decision-making power. And oftentimes people are really wrapped up in assigning some type of name to it. I'm the primary parent and you're the secondary parent. But those adjectives really don't matter. What matters is what is the schedule and what are the rights. And so the legal custody rights are going to set forth who gets to make decisions, and the schedule is going to set forth when you share time with that child. So, if you have one more day than the other person and you want to call that primary, okay, good for you, but it doesn't change the schedule. So, I encourage people not to be wrapped up in those names and roles and just look at what the schedule is and what your rights are about decision making.
Okay. Here's a question here. Talk about the cost and separation agreement. Talk about how that goes hand in hand, the different costs.
Okay, so the different costs that could be associated with the separation agreement, again, like I said before, it's not a document that you file like at the Register of Deeds, so you don't have those types of costs. But oftentimes, in order to have it drafted by an attorney, there would be a cost there. The writing has to be signed by both parties in front of a notary, so there might be notary costs. Sometimes people do get those forms on the internet, and so there might be a cost there for the particular form. But in those instances, I really encourage people to have an attorney at least look at it for them, because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And if you are a competent adult, then just because you signed it, not really understanding what you were signing, doesn't necessarily get you out of it. And they are very binding. So sometimes it would be just worthwhile to have an attorney look it over to explain it to you so you know what you're actually getting yourself into. And those would be the costs associated with that.
Okay. Someone is asking, how can I get equitable distribution? I'm separated from my husband. He is living in the house.
Okay. So if you want equitable distribution, a couple ways you can do it. You can do it by agreement, like I said, a separation agreement, and you can include within the separation agreement a provision that addresses equitable distribution, how you divide your property. The other way to do it, particularly, if a person doesn't want to come to the table and agree, is to make a claim in court, file a pleading, and make a complaint for equitable distribution and make that claim. And then your claim will be recorded in court. It's really important for people to understand that if you want to make a claim for equitable distribution, that has to be either in process or resolved before your divorce is final. If you get a divorce, you won't then be able to come back and ask for equitable distribution if you hadn't already asked for it beforehand. So it's really important to know.
Okay. Someone is asking, I have legal custody of my grandson. I went through the court system and was awarded custody, but I want to adopt him. How should I begin?
So the only time you're able to adopt a child is if a parent, for example, voluntarily gives up their rights, or if the parent rights are terminated. So you would have to accomplish one of those two things in order to be able to adopt. And oftentimes, if you have a custody order and you have an active, vibrant parent who is exercising, visitation or a relationship with a child, it can be really challenging to get an adoption. So that's something that you should really take to a lawyer. That's not a simple process.
Okay. And someone is asking, what if a parent goes on medical disability or becomes unemployed?
Mhm. How that affects child support, are you saying?
I believe so. Maybe, yes.
Okay. Okay, so as a part of that child support calculation, there are certain types of income that are excluded from child support. And so that would be factored in if a parent had disability, or if they had disability, then that is factored in. If they're unemployed, oftentimes the court will require them to become employed in order to provide for their child. You don't just get to not have a job, you would have to get a job. And so oftentimes in our child support court, the court will give a parent an opportunity to go out and apply for 20 jobs and then come back and to show the court that they've actively been making an effort to get a job. But if it were disability, there's opportunity in those types of instances to have the disability also provide for the child.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Well, we'll be right after here back after the break to continue this conversation. We're talking domestic law, separation, child custody. Remember, you can text that number right here on your screen, 336-379-5775.